I call this meeting to order.
I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the 14th meeting of the COVID-19 meeting of the House of Commons on the COVID-19 pandemic.
Meeting. Some members will be participating via video conference and some will be participating in person. In order to ensure that those joining the meeting via video conference can be seen and heard by those in the chamber, 2 screens have been set up on either side of the speaker's chair, and members in the chamber can listen to the floor audio or to interpretation using their earpiece at their desk. Je vous prie d'entendre que...
Please note, wait until I give you the floor before you begin speaking, and please address your remarks through the chair.
Joining via video conference, I would like to remind you to leave your mic on mute when you are not speaking. Also, please note that if you want to speak in English, you should be on the English channel, and if you want to speak French, you should be on the French channel. And should you wish to alternate between the 2 languages, you should change the channel to the language that you're speaking each time you switch languages.
Should members participating by video conference need to request the floor outside their designating speaking times, they should activate their mic and state that they have a point of order. Those in the chamber can rise in the usual way. Please note that today's proceedings will be televised in the same way as a typical sitting of the House.
Proceed to ministerial announcements. I understand that there are none. No ministerial announcements. Now we'll proceed to tabling of documents. Nous allons maintenant...
We'll now proceed to tabling of documents. We have a document tabled by Mr. Leblanc. Mr. Leblanc. Is everything okay?
I have the honor to table in both official languages a report entitled Democracy Matters, Debates Count, a report on the 2019 Leaders Debate Commission and the future of debates in Canada. And Mr. Chair, on behalf of all of us, I want to thank the Right Honourable David Johnston for his continued service.
Good. We'll now proceed to presenting of petitions for a period not exceeding 15 minutes.
I'd like to remind members that petitions presented during a special meeting must already have been certified by the Clerk of Petitions.
In person, we ask that you please come to the front and drop off your certificate at the table once petition has been presented. Our first presenting petitions. The first presenter today is Mr. Genuis. Mr. Genuis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to be presenting a petition in support of Bill S-204. This is a bill in the Senate put forward by Senator Salma Tulajan. It would make it a criminal offense for a person to go abroad and receive an organ for which there has not been consent. It also creates a mechanism by which someone could be deemed inadmissible to Canada if they were involved in organ harvesting and trafficking. This bill is designed to confront and address the horrific practice by which in certain cases, for instance, inside China, minority communities or dissidents may be targeted, have their organs removed as they're killed and used for transplantation. Petitioners are supportive of Bill S-204 and they want to see it pass as soon as possible.
Presenting petitions, our next petition will go to Mr. Viersen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am presenting a petition today signed by Canadians who are concerned about Bill C-7, that it removes safeguards from the current euthanasia regime, including the mandatory 10-day waiting period. Mr. Speaker, these people who are signing this petition would like to see an improvement in the assisted living, not assisted dying. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Présentation de pétition will now...
Presenting petitions.
Ms. Zaid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to present a petition signed by over 40 people asking that the Government of Canada recognize the Republic of Somaliland as an autonomous state that may result in foreign investments, direct access of development aid, foreign aid for disaster relief and infrastructure developments, investment loans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good. Presenting petitions. Présentation de pétitions.
Presenting petitions.
Now we'll proceed to statements by members for a period not exceeding 15 minutes. Chaque déclaration.
Every statement will last 1 minute at the most. Reminder, members who go over this time will be interrupted.
Will be no more than 1 minute. A reminder that all members who go over the time will be interrupted. Our first statement goes to Monsieur El Khoury.
Mr. El Khoury, I'd like to thank the government for the way it has managed this global crisis and its impact on Canadians. They have handled it in a robust, quick, and efficient manner. Our Prime Minister has received a Medal of Honor of Courage and Humanity globally, and Canada is one of the only countries that has acted in the best interests of its citizens and has kept its dignity during this time of uncertainty.
Addressing Canadian, our Right Honourable showed us leadership, the importance of transparency and integrity. He kept us united. His top priority was saving lives, along with finding realistic solutions regarding the economic impact in our daily life. Because of his outstanding leadership, we are admired across the world, which is another distinguished privilege to be Canadian. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. Epp.
COVID-19 has emptied food banks across Canada, even in an agricultural community like Chatham-Kent. So, Wes Thompson, James Rasmussen, along with Alison Story, Randy Bacher, Maureen Geddes, Chris and Terry Johnson, Jason King, Fanny Vabulis, and Brent Wilkin grew an idea into the community's largest ever food drive. Project manager Marina McDonald estimates that over 3,000 volunteers ended up helping in the May 16th miracle. Residents put non-perishable foodstuffs on their doorsteps with drop-off centers organized for rural areas. Volunteer groups traveled predetermined routes while maintaining physical distancing. The community collected an amazing 678,000 pounds of food. They accidentally exceeded the Guinness World Book of Records for collected food in a single day by over 20%. Chatham-Kent has restocked their food banks, reaffirmed their community pride. It's an honor to represent such a community.
We'll now go to Mr. Sarai. We have a point of order, Mr. Entremont.
As much as I like seeing my friends on the big screens, there's no big screens yet, so we don't know who's on, who's not on. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be a TV coming up soon here, Mr. Speaker.
There is a technical issue, and it is being worked on. We're working through it as we go through. The other alternative is we suspend until we fix it. If it's okay, we'll just continue. I think we can all hear the members who are speaking, and this is one of the realities of virtual or a hybrid system. Our next statement will go to Mr. Sarai. Mr. Sarai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and mabuhay to all the Filipino Canadians across this country. In June, across Canada, we recognize Filipino Heritage Month to raise awareness and celebrate the Filipino community. Here in Surrey Centre and across Canada, the Filipino community makes important contributions to our cities and have helped shape Canada into the vibrant multicultural society that we all know and love today. Now more than ever, during these challenging times, we must come together as Canadians and celebrate the rich heritage and history of our Filipino neighbors. Throughout June, please join me in celebrating our fellow citizens of Filipino descent by recognizing all the incredible ways they have contributed to making Canada a better place for all of us. Happy Filipino Heritage Month. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The next statement will be from Mr. Perron. Hello, Chair. Today is World Milk Day, and I would like to underscore the tremendous work of all players in this industry. They provide us with nutritious and top-quality milk every day. Let's buy local and rediscover exceptional products of our dairy producers and processors. Try the yogurts, cheeses, and other products because dairy is delicious. I'd also like to thank Mr. Bruno Letendre, the outgoing president of Quebec's dairy producers, and I'd also like to congratulate the new president, Mr. Daniel Gobet. This industry has often been sacrificed for trade deals, and broken promises from this government are piling up. And these are uncertain times. We need to take action. The first thing we could do is directly give import contingency to processors. The second thing would be fully pay back the compensation that is owed. We would like a formal commitment from this government. Chair, June is Italian Heritage Month, and this year the situation is a special one. Italy was hit hard by COVID-19 with more than 30,000 deaths. Like me, many Italian Canadians have family and friends who are still in Italy, and often this news is difficult. However, this has not shaken the strong cooperation between Canada and Italy.
Highlight the solidarità italiana in our community. During the pandemic, Canadians of Italian descent have been united to support our anziani, our famigli, and our amici in Italia by participating in the fundraising campaign COVID-19 Aiutiamo l'Italia to support the Italian Red Cross response activities. A special salute to my cugino Giuseppe, still on the road to recovery from COVID-19. Siamo distanti ma uniti. Andrà tutto bene. Grazie.
We'll continue with Mr. Cram. Mr. Cram.
Mr. Chair, I would like to acknowledge all of the organizations in Saskatchewan and across Canada that are working hard to help small businesses to adapt to the challenges of the current pandemic. In particular, I would like to thank the Regina Downtown Business Improvement District, or RDBID. As soon as the pandemic hit, RDBID launched a daily electronic newsletter to keep their members informed of support programs, local initiatives, and local success stories. They have used their social media channels on a daily basis to promote takeout and delivery service, online and curbside services offered by restaurants and retailers. They have also launched a number of their own initiatives to help businesses to access e-commerce. Through persistent communication and a lot of long hours, RDBID has helped businesses in downtown Regina to weather the storm. Because of their hard work, downtown Regina will come through this pandemic better than ever.
Mr. Lauzon.
Mr. Lauzon. Chair, high-speed internet is the 21st century what electricity was for the 20th century. It's an essential service. Right now, we are seeing a drastic change in the situation in our consumption patterns and the way we socialize. And we have to rely on internet to read the news and contact our friends. And the confinement because of COVID-19 has only accelerated this trend. Unfortunately, not all regions in Canada have access to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet, which is essential. I'd like to reassure Canadians in my writings about the efforts we're making as a government, but also we were trying to connect all Canadians in all 41 municipalities of Argenteuil-la-Petite-Nation. Our students, our seniors, and our entrepreneurs are very important for our regions, and we have heard you. I'm going to continue to fight for you and to ensure that high-speed internet will be offered soon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair.
With horror and outrage, the death of an unarmed black man at the hands of the police in Minneapolis. For many of us, these images may seem shocking, but it's an all too familiar tale to millions of black people, not only in the United States, but also here in Canada, in my city of Gatineau, and around the world, who must at times live with the scourge of anti-black racism. Monsieur le Président, je ne peux...
Chair, I can't imagine what it's like to be black in our society. But what I do know, however, is that for you and me and everyone in this chamber, we hold the power and bear the responsibility to make this nation more fair, more just.
To that endeavor, black Canadians and all those who have to endure racism and discrimination. They are watching us, and they expect more from us. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair.
Now we'll go to Mr. Duncan. Mr. Duncan.
Without a doubt, these past few months have been challenging, to say the least, from both a health and economic perspective. But, Mr. Chair, I have to say how proud I am of my community of Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry. We continue to successfully flatten the curve in our region, and just as importantly, we are making sure that we're here for each other. Whether it be the Cornwall Optimists Go Feed Me campaign, the Iroquois Matilda Lions Club delivering groceries to those who are quarantined and in their households, or the local United Way, Social Development Council, and Care for Senior Support Centres co-leading an effort to deliver 1,500 baskets to seniors in need, there have been many examples of kindness and generosity from our community. I rise today in the House of Commons to say to my constituents and to all Canadians, thank you. To our essential frontline workers, to our service clubs and businesses that have stepped up to help out, and to everybody playing their part to get us through this challenge. I couldn't be more proud of my community, my residents, and it's an honour to serve as our Member of Parliament. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We'll now go to Ms. Yip. Ms. Yip.
Asian Heritage Month has just passed, we recognize the tremendous effort of all Asian Canadians on the front lines of this pandemic as healthcare providers or as essential workers. I want to thank the many Asian organizations for donating to Scarborough Asian Courts Hospital, long-term care homes, and food banks. As a Canadian born and raised in Scarborough, I'm offended by the reports of violence and vandalism targeting Asian Canadian communities across this country. In Budget 2019, we invested $45 million to launch a new anti-racism strategy, which included the establishment of the Anti-Racism Secretariat, because these efforts are unfortunately clearly still needed. As events continue to unfold in the United States, it is important to recognize that we have work to do here as well. Whether it is anti-Black or anti-Asian, racism and discrimination of any kind has no place in Canada, full stop. Now more than ever, we must stand united in diversity. Thank you.
Now go on to Mr. Bragdon. Mr. Bragdon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Over the last few months, Canadians throughout New Brunswick and across the country have stepped up to support their community. Healthcare workers, truckers, farmers, business owners, pharmacists, grocery store staff, faith-based and nonprofit organizations, and so many others have all answered the call to do their part. Today, Mr. Chair, I would like to specifically highlight the work of those who support and take care of our seniors, who are among some of our most at-risk citizens. It has been said that the character of a nation and its people is revealed most in how they treat their most vulnerable. Our seniors have made immense contributions to our society. Many have put their lives on the line to protect Canada and the democratic freedoms we enjoy as Canadians. They have worked hard and made many sacrifices throughout their lives to make Canada the greatest nation on earth. Taking care of our seniors is the right thing to do. I want to take this opportunity to thank all those who are supporting and caring for our seniors, whether they be long-term care staff, personal care workers, healthcare professionals, family members, or volunteers. Thank you for all you are doing in support of our seniors. Together, we shall overcome.
We'll now go to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
Mr. Chair, although we've come to the end of Asian Heritage Month, I'd like to acknowledge some unsung Chinese-Canadian heroes who've shed their blood as patriots for our nation. I commemorate the 6,500 Chinese Canadians of the 9,000 railway workers who helped build and unite Canada. I pay respect to the many Chinese Canadians who died while building the CP Railway on the most dangerous terrains in the BC segment. I honor the Chinese Canadians who served and died in World War II. But sadly, Asian communities in Canada face racist incidents today. No one should be afraid of walking in their own neighborhood. Adult children should not have to call their elderly parents to stay home because they might be attacked by racists. There's no justification for racial slurs, physical violence, or vandalism against any individual or community. I will continue to work together with other elected officials, the police, and RCMP to mitigate these issues toward justice and restoration. Thank you.
We'll go on to Mr. Angus. Mr. Angus. Mr. Angus, please proceed.
10 years ago today, Cree youth leader Shannon Kustashian was killed in a horrific car accident. She was only 15 years old. And yet in her short life, she became the voice of a generation of First Nation youth who were no longer willing to put up with systemic discrimination. Shannon had never seen a real school. Children in Attawapiskat were being educated in squalid conditions, and her fight for their dignity and rights launched the largest youth-driven civil rights movement in Canadian history. At 14, she was nominated for the International Children's Peace Prize. Shannon never lived to see the school that was built in her community, but her work carries on through the Shannon's Dream movement. She is a role model for youth activists across this country. There is a movie and 2 books and a statue dedicated to her. She's been recognized as one of the 150 most influential women in Canadian history. I had the honor to know Shannon. In fact, I think of her every single day. She truly did come from the angels, and one day she returned.
Maintenant, nous allons continuer avec Monsieur Barcelot.
We're going to continue with Mr. Barcelot Duval. Chair, for months, thousands of consumers who need money to pay their bills are fighting with airlines and this government to have their rights respected. 3 class action requests, a unanimous motion from the National Assembly, and more than 3,000 people have signed a petition calling for refunds. It's not a whim to uphold the law. Air Canada has grabbed $2.6 billion from its customers and received over $800 million from Ottawa with no conditions. This company yet has 1 year's worth of cash in its accounts, $6 billion in its coffers, and more than $1.4 billion it's raising on the financial markets. They can refund people. They have the money to do so. We've seen enough of these crocodile tears from the Minister of Transport. I consulted the bankruptcy list this morning, and I didn't see any airlines on it. It's time to get to work for our citizens.
Mr. Reyes.
Mr. Reyes. Chair, I'd like to pay tribute to a wonderful man who worked in this House for more than 15 years, Mr. Michel Gauthier. He marked many people. When I spoke with him for the first time 2 years ago, I realized he was a man who had a lot of heart and who helped people. I was able to know him personally, and I'm very grateful for this. We discussed the best way to communicate our vision of the Conservative Party to Quebecers, and I'll remember all the passion he had when he made a speech. Michel, Quebecers and myself will remember you forever. The wonderful man you were. You were an exceptional speaker and a passionate parliamentarian. I would like to offer my sincerest condolences to your family. May you rest in peace. Now we're going to continue with Mr. Dubourg. Chair, the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis resounded strongly in Black communities in Canada and also in the heart of Montreal North. At this time of pandemic, where uncertainty reigns and where our community is relying heavily on essential workers, such an event has revived this feeling of fear and injustice. This has happened once again in the U.S., but we're not... we could see this in our community as well. I feel your pain as a parent and as a Black person. I understand your fear for your children. As elected officials, we have the duty to protect our rights, your rights as well, and I will stay vigilant and continue to work to fight discrimination. Thank you very much, Chair. Before we move ahead, I would like to remind members to avoid sound problems. People participating in person.
Reminder that in order to avoid issues with sound, members participating in person should not be connected to the video conference. There seems to be some interference when you're watching in the chamber and it's being transmitted, so just something to make it so that things run smoother.
Now we're going to continue with questions to ministers. Please note that we will suspend every 45 minutes to allow employees that support our work to switch safely.
This goes to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Now, when the government first started rolling out programs to help Canadians get through this pandemic, we raised points about some flaws, some gaps in the program. The government assured Canadians that they would fix these programs as time went on. Well, Canadians are suffering through both the health and the economic consequences of the lockdown related to the coronavirus, and yet here we are, the first day of June, and the government still has yet to address the flaws in their programs. They're still letting so many Canadians down. So a series of very straightforward, very specific questions, Mr. Chair. On April 20th, we raised with the Minister of Finance the issue of companies that had purchased another company not being able to demonstrate revenue loss and therefore not being eligible for the wage subsidy, even though both companies separately would have been able to do just that. We've raised it several times now, and I'd like to ask the government when they will be fixing this unnecessarily rigid aspect of the wage subsidy program.
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the member opposite for that very important question. I believe that a company with a fantastic Canadian history in his riding, Brandt Tractor, who pioneered the manufacture of augers in Canada, is particularly affected by this. It is very important for us that the wage subsidy be available to as many Canadian companies as possible. It helps to keep employees connected to their businesses. Now, there are always some specific issues that can make it challenging for particular companies. I know in the case of Brandt Tractor, for example, officials from the Ministry of Finance are directly in touch with the company to work on that. Thank you.
We'll now go back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Mr. Chair, that's the same answer we got last week. It's the same answer we got 2 weeks before that. It's the same answer we've been getting from day one. This is a very simple question. The government has indicated that they will change this program to allow for amalgamations. The solution is very simple. It is to also allow for those companies who have undergone acquisitions. So, very specific question, will the government fix this program and allow for companies who have acquired another company to still access the wage subsidy program?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me just point out that the wage subsidy program is working extremely well for many, many Canadian companies and for many, many Canadians who are able to keep their job thanks to the program. More than 2 million Canadian workers are today benefiting from the wage subsidy program. By any measure, that is a successful program. Now, for sure, there are always going to be companies that, because of specifics in their history, need specific attention, and that...
Go back to Mr. Scheer. Mr. Scheer.
Well, Mr. Speaker, reports indicate that up to half of the money allocated for the wage subsidy is going unspent, precisely because this government has left in unnecessarily rigid barriers for companies being able to access it. It's a yes or no question, and the minister still can't answer it. So along the same lines, we asked on April 8th to allow businesses applying for the wage subsidy to demonstrate their 30% revenue loss using other metrics, such as loss of earnings, subscriptions, and orders, in order to qualify. They still can't do that today, the first day of June. Why hasn't the government addressed this part of the program?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are very proud of the wage subsidy program and proud of the role it is playing to keep Canadian businesses going and, crucially, to keep Canadian workers connected to their job. But I have a question for the member opposite. Half of the questions we hear from the Conservatives in question period are concerns that we're spending too much money, that the deficit is too high. The other half of the time, they complain about specific companies not getting access to our programs. We know which side we're on as a government. I'd like the Conservatives to let Canadians know what they believe in.
Mr. Scheer, a short question.
Mr. Speaker, it's quite clear what Conservatives believe in. We believe that when times were good, this government should have paid down debt instead of wasting money like $50 million to MasterCard and $12 million to Loblaws. The fact of the matter is this government left Canadians in a vulnerable position as we're entering into this pandemic precisely because of their fiscal irresponsibility. And now they've designed programs that have unnecessary barriers in them that prevents more and more Canadians from getting the help they need. So again, on April 26th, Conservatives asked the Prime Minister to change the criteria for the Canada Emergency Business Account so that small businesses who don't happen to have a business bank account can qualify. Why hasn't the Prime Minister made that change either?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I am really grateful for that question because it allows me to set the record straight for Canadians. Canadians need to know that our country has the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7. We had that before the crisis began, and we still do. Canada has the fiscal firepower to support Canadians during this unprecedented crisis, and that is what we're going to continue to do.
Nous allons maintenant continuer avec Madame de Bellefeuille.
And now, Ms. Bellefeuille. Mr. Chair, the wage subsidy was implemented to support businesses and to prevent closures and bankruptcies. Have I missed something? Or is the Liberal Party about to go bankrupt? What's going on here? Does the minister believe that the Liberal Party is about to go bankrupt? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. As the member said, the wage subsidy was implemented to protect workers throughout Canada. We're proud of this. More than 2 million Canadians. We will continue with Ms. de Bellefeuille. The Liberal Party gathered $3 million between January and March. These are partisan political donations. We have been told that the wage subsidy is an emergency assistance and that it's to protect Liberal Party employees. I'm not an accountant, but I do know how to count. Why doesn't the Liberal Party use its own money to pay its own employees instead of using the emergency wage subsidy? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. I would like to say once again that the objective of the wage subsidy is to support workers throughout Canada and in Quebec in order to help them keep their jobs and to preserve their relationships with their workplace. And we have done exactly that. More than 2 million Canadians today are benefiting from this important program. It is an essential program for our country, and we're proud of it. The Honourable Member. Mr. Chair, does the Deputy Prime Minister think that it is fair, ethical, and honest that the money of employees who have lost their jobs are ultimately underwriting through their taxes an emergency wage subsidy for the Liberal Party of Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you. Our programs don't discriminate. They are there to help all workers. The member mentioned businesses and sectors that need more help, and we agree. We still have more work to do. There is still much to be done. We will continue with Ms. de Bellefeuille. Many businesses in Quebec which are experiencing difficulties don't have access to this program. They do not qualify for the wage subsidy program under current criteria, such as tourism organizations or paramunicipal organizations. And yet, somehow, the Liberal Party has managed to qualify. What I really want to know is whether the Deputy PM finds it ethical for her party to take advantage of this subsidy when the party has the means to pay its own employees. The Honourable Minister. Thank you for the question. I agree that we must do much more, and we are doing just that. At the same time, we need to underline to Canadians that our government has done a great deal to support them. We have spent $152 billion on measures of direct support to Canadians. More than 8 million Canadians have taken advantage of CERB. Mr. Bellefeuille. Well, it seems pretty clear. The Liberal Party has enough money to pay its workers. But it doesn't want to dip into its war chest, which is keeping for the next election. It's almost as if it were indirectly financing the next election campaign. Will the Deputy Prime Minister show leadership and convince her own party that the right thing to do is to not use the emergency wage subsidy and even reimburse the money? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much. I would like to state once again that our programs don't discriminate. They are there to help all workers throughout the country. And we are helping people. 8 million Canadians with the CERB, 2 million supported by the wage subsidy, 380,000 students, 639,000 businesses.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Canadians and people across the world are reeling after seeing the images of George Floyd brutally killed in a callous and casual manner. We're struggling with the impacts of anti-Black racism. And anti-Black racism hasn't just appeared or increased, it's now simply being captured by video. Canada is also no different. Anti-Black racism also impacts Canada, and people here are feeling the frustration of Black lives being neglected and ignored. Will the government commit to tracking race-based data in terms of COVID-19's impact on communities, particularly Black Canadians, but race-based data so that we can have a better response based on the evidence?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to start by thanking the member opposite for his very important question and thanking him for the very important work he has done throughout his career in drawing attention to racism in Canada and in fighting against it. Thank you. Let me also say I agree strongly with the member opposite that we as Canadians must be the opposite of complacent. We have to acknowledge that anti-Black racism is real in our country, that unconscious bias is real in our country, that systemic discrimination is real. It happens here. We have to commit today to working hard to fight it. I have more to say about disaggregated data and the coronavirus, and I hope I'll have a chance to do that in my next answer.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you for that openness on the part of the government, but I want some more commitments, some clear commitments. We also know that race-based or discriminatory police practices still exist across Canada. Will the government commit to working with provinces to ensure that there are no such practices allowed to exist in Canada, particularly related to discriminatory police practices like carding? Will the federal government work and use its powers to end those discriminatory practices where federal regulation applies and work with provinces to ensure that it happens across the country?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again for that really important question. Let me just say, first of all, on coronavirus, our government does believe that disaggregated data, including when it comes to race, is extremely important, and we're working with our provincial partners on that. On policing, racial profiling is unacceptable and unlawful. We will always work to uphold the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and ensure that the human rights of everyone in Canada are protected. And at the federal level, our CMP members are guided by bias-free policing based on equality and non-discrimination.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you. I want to change tracks, Mr. Speaker, and talk about long-term care. How many times did the Prime Minister's office and the Liberal government meet with lobbyists from for-profit long-term care homes from March 25th to April 22nd during the worst impacts of long-term care, worst impacts of COVID-19 in long-term care homes?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, right now at this moment, I can only speak for myself, and I can say that I have not met with any such lobbyists during that period or at other times. And I do share the member opposite's concern about long-term care facilities in Canada. We have to do better, and we will.
Mr. Singh.
12 times during the worst impacts of COVID-19, where seniors are dying in long-term care homes. The Prime Minister's office and the Liberal government met with long-term care homes, private for-profit lobbyists, over 12 times. Why did the Prime Minister choose to meet, or Prime Minister's office and the Liberal government choose to meet with these for-profit long-term care home lobbyists instead of meeting with those to solve the problem, instead of providing excuses about the federal government not playing a role? Why didn't the Prime Minister and the Liberal government show leadership in calling for an end to profit in long-term care homes?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me be very clear about one thing, speaking on behalf of our government and speaking on behalf of the Prime Minister, that our government sees as a matter of utmost concern and utmost urgency what has been happening in long-term care homes in our country, and that the reports that we have received from the brave men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces about facilities in Ontario and Quebec, really we need to treat those as historic documents that are a spur to action.
La prochaine question va à Monsieur Reyes. Monsieur Reyes.
Next question, Mr. Reyes. How is it, Mr. Chair, that those participating in the summer program, the summer jobs program, has not yet received the money that they are due? The Honourable Minister.
Minister.
The Honourable Minister.
The Canada Summer Jobs Program is strengthened and enforced. We are making it more available to more students. We have lengthened the time period that the program.
Nous allons retourner à Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes. Mr. Chair, every day the Prime Minister makes announcements outside of his home. I would like to repeat my question. Given the importance of this program for our youth, young people want to work, and we know all the conflicts there have been around the Canada Emergency Student Benefit. How is it that this money isn't there to hire these students? The Honourable Minister.
Our government is working hard to help employers adapt to the realities of COVID-19. We recognize the important role that Canada Summer Jobs plays in supporting employers and young workers in communities across the country every year. That is why we've introduced flexibilities in the Canada Summer Jobs Program to hire youth while providing more supports to employers.
Monsieur Reyes.
Monsieur le Président, le ministre peut bien dire.
The minister can say whatever he wants, but last year there was no crisis, and yet as soon as April, all of the employers eligible for the program had received the money. And now we're in a crisis. The government should respond quickly, and yet community organizations are not receiving the money due to them to hire students and help them work. Why?
Mr. Speaker, we have introduced flexibilities, and we have managed to introduce flexibilities to take into consideration the difficult environment of the COVID-19 pandemic. As such, the flexibilities we've introduced to the Canada Summer Jobs Program will help the more hiring of youth, more supports to employers, including nonprofits and businesses that deliver essential services to Canadians. These changes will help small businesses hire and keep the workers that they need in the Canada Summer Jobs.
Monsieur Reyes.
Mr. Reyes. Mr. Chair, I can imagine that youth that are listening must be shocked. The minister is saying that they're offering more flexibility, and yet it's taken a month and a half more and the money's not there. I did my homework, Mr. Chair. I went to look at what was happening in my riding and a dozen others. Just in mine, last year in April, all of the money was already earmarked. And yet now, $240,000 are still missing for about 60 student jobs. The minister's telling us they're making things more flexible, and yet why isn't the money there on the ground? We need to act quickly to support economic recovery and help youth.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, indeed, we are acting quickly. We're listening to the needs of the employers to make sure that this program not only works for them, but also works for youth, gives them the experiences that they need, is adapted better for the COVID-19 pandemic, and ensures that youth have the experience that they need to gain life skills and work skills from the Canada Summer Jobs Program. It's a great program, and we're making it work for not just businesses, but also nonprofits.
Monsieur le Président, voici la réalité pour le ministre.
Let me tell you what's really happening. Last week, a hardware store in part of my riding had to close the stores because they simply couldn't hire, and they couldn't hire students. Today, an employer called me and said that he had been approved for a student job, but that because of the delay, he was ultimately going to have to turn down that hire. And so that's another young person who won't have access to a job opportunity and who's going to have to go back on the student benefit. That's the reality of what's happening. When are you going to free up that money for our youth who are just trying to work?
Mr. Speaker, I join the honourable member in recognizing that in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are some difficulties in terms of structuring the program and making sure that employers are able to access it. And that is why we've introduced flexibilities to ensure that employers are able to access the program, but also that youth are able to take advantage of the program to gain important work skills, especially in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, and especially in providing essential services that serve their fellow Canadians. It's a great program. We're doing everything that we can to work through some of those obstacles.
We'll now continue with Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By its own numbers, PSPC has had to cut the number of N95s the government has on order after cancelling contracts with companies that were not able to meet Canadian standards. We know there were companies right here in Canada willing to step up and fill in the gap. Will the minister commit to making domestic production of PPE, including N95s, a priority?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Our priority is to make sure that we get safe and effective equipment and supplies into the hands of frontline healthcare workers. What we've been doing is running multiple complementary supply chains at the same time. Building up domestic capacity is indeed a priority. We have a contract with Medicom in Montreal for the production of N95 masks, and we will continue to
go back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
Well, Mr. Chair, Novo Textiles, a company in my riding, has retooled its factory to produce surgical masks in response to the shortage of PPE in Canada. Additionally, it will soon be producing quality-made in Canada N95 masks using Canadian-designed and Canadian-made machinery. My constituent has invested his own capital and is in active production supplying frontline workers right now, not just talking about it. However, the company's application to NGen was recently rejected. Canada needs masks now, masks that meet Canadian standards. Is the government serious about growing domestic production capacity, or is it all talk and no action?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member for the question, Mr. Speaker. In reality, we have received 101.3 million surgical masks that are being distributed out to provinces and territories. We have signed 24 contracts with domestic companies for the production of PPE right here at home. We are working very hard, Mr. Speaker, to make sure Canadian frontline healthcare workers have exactly what they need to fight this pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ms. Shin.
Mr. Chair, how many of these have received financial support from the government?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not quite sure what the member is referring to in terms of how many of these, but as I said, we have signed 24 contracts with domestic.
We'll have to go back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
Where are these manufacturers located?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have surgical masks being produced right here at home as well as abroad being brought into Canada.
Back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
What provinces are they in?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, we have a contract with General Motors for the production of surgical masks.
Ms. Shin.
Are there any in any provinces besides Ontario and Quebec?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have contracts with multiple provinces throughout this country for the production of personal protective equipment. We are committed
Back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
How many of these domestic manufacturers rely on supply chains in China?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with a situation of very high global demand for the same product. And as a result,
We'll go back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
Will the minister commit to providing my office with answers to these questions? Thank you.
The Honourable.
I will commit, Mr. Speaker, to continuing to work hard for Canadians to supply the personal protective equipment that they need. We have been giving updated numbers on our website every...
Go back to Ms. Shin. Ms. Shin.
I'm going to assume that answer is no. Mr. Chair, the Prime Minister introduced the Canada Student Service Grant on April 22. Students were told details would arrive in a matter of weeks. It's been over a month. The I Want to Help platform yet has no details about eligibility, levels of funding, or how to apply. Post-secondary school students are already 1 quarter into their summer break. When can students expect to start applying for the CSSG so they can receive their grants? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to share that students can anticipate more programs coming out as soon as possible because the I Want to Help website will be launched. Students can already apply for Canada Summer Jobs if you go to jobbank.gc.ca. By visiting canada.ca/coronavirus, you'll see a suite of programs to ensure that students and young people are able to succeed. Coronavirus will not win. Our government will continue investing in our leaders of today and tomorrow.
The next set of questions goes to Mr. Brassard. Mr. Brassard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, the President of the Treasury Board wrote a letter to his cabinet colleagues in which he said that, as the federal minister responsible for public access to government information, that he's advised his cabinet colleagues of the need for transparency and accountability even in times of crisis. So my question is to the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities. Does she agree with the President of the Treasury Board's directive?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the government remains committed to maintaining the openness and transparency of our government during this challenging time. The Government of Canada, along with provincial and territorial governments, have implemented exceptional workplace measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 and to protect the health and safety of federal employees. These measures have had an impact on institutions' ability to respond to access to information and personal information requests, since most employees are now working from their homes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We'll go back to Mr. Brassard. Mr. Brassard.
Frankly, surprised that the answer is coming from that minister when the Minister of Infrastructure is in the House, but I will ask this question. Can the minister tell Canadians who Pierre Lavallee is?
It's a committee. The Honourable Minister.
Treasury Board Secretariat has provided guidance to institutions to continue to make the best efforts to respond to Access to Information Act and Privacy Act requests and to provide published content.
Go back to Mr. Brassard. Mr. Brassard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the Minister of Infrastructure and Communities tell us who Pierre Lavallee is?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, Pierre Lavallee was the former CEO of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We are very proud that we now have Michael Sabia, who is the new chair of the Infrastructure Bank. He did a fabulous job in Montreal.
Now go back to Mr. Brassard. Mr. Brassard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can the minister tell me how long Mr. Lavallee was the CEO of the Infrastructure Bank?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't give you the exact months. He was the CEO of the Canada Infrastructure Bank since the beginning. But let's be clear, Crown corporations work at arm's length for the government and must have flexibility.
Return to Mr. Brassard. Mr. Brassard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I ask the minister how well she knows her file? 50%, 75%, or 100%?
The Honourable Minister.
Quite a condescending little comment. I'd like to say that I know my file very well. And you know what I know is that Canadians want infrastructure built. They want it built across the country in the member opposite's riding and in ridings across the country. They want cleaner, healthier, more connected.
Go back to Mr. Broussard. Mr. Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. How much of the $35 billion of infrastructure money that was allocated to that bank has been spent so far?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Infrastructure Bank is a new, more flexible financing model for infrastructure investments. It was set up. It is now in its new phase. We're very excited it's going to be moving forward, and stay tuned.
Mr. Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in the context of Mr. Duclos' advice to his cabinet colleagues about openness and transparency, I'd like to ask the Minister, how much was Mr. Lavallee paid annually?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, Crown corporations work at arm's length for the government. Our government follows the Privacy Act and Access to Information Act when it comes to employee compensation. But remuneration ranges are publicly available, and I'd note that this information for the bank CEO has been in the public domain.
Back to Mr. Broussard. Mr. Broussard.
So I'm asking the Minister, Mr. Chair, how much Mr. Lavallee made. There was no answer to that. If it is in the public realm, she should know that. She said she knows her file very well. How much of a bonus was Mr. Lavallee paid recently when he left on April 2nd?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I am not involved in HR discussions when it comes to the Canada Infrastructure Bank and Mr. Lavallee. Crown corporations work at arm's length from the government. They need to have flexibility and meet their commercial mandates. And as I say, the information about salary ranges is publicly available, but personal HR.
Back to Mr. Broussard. Mr. Broussard.
So how many, Mr. Speaker, could you stop I'm hearing.
Joining us virtually to mute, s'il vous plaît, tous les députés qui nous.
I would ask all the members who are with us virtually to mute.
Okay, now Mr. Broussard, there's about 15 seconds left. I'll give you a very short question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to a table, Mr. Lavallee could have received a bonus after year one of 0 to 75% of his base salary, which was $510,000 to $600,000 per year, or in year two, which he was in, 0 to 120% of his base salary. How much of a bonus did he receive?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The rate of any remuneration paid to the Chief Executive Officer is based on the recommendation of the Board. Our government follows the Privacy Act and Access to Information Act when it comes to employee compensation. But let me say this, that we're very excited about the new phase of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. We have Michael Sabia there as the new board chair, that we need to move forward on.
We'll now continue to Mr. Chong. Mr. Chong.
Thank you, Chair. Parliament's now been suspended for 3 months since Friday, March 13th. Will the government commit to reopening the House of Commons with its full powers, with social distancing, on Monday, September the 21st?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows, we're meeting here 4 days a week with questions for an hour and 35 instead of 45 minutes a day. Questions on any topic, Mr. Speaker, and democracy is as important for us than it is for the opposition.
Mr. Chong.
Mr. Speaker, this committee is neutered. It has no power to introduce supply day motions, no powers to test government confidence, no powers to do the usual things that Parliament does. At times of crisis, bedrock principles are tested: human rights, the rule of law, and democracy. And our democratic principles are buckling under the pressure from this government. It came to office promising greater transparency, but they broke almost every one of their promises. They broke their promise on electoral reform. They appointed an anti-conservative organization, Unifor, to the Media Bailout Fund. In the last Parliament, they tried to give PMO control over this legislature in Motion 6, and in the last election, they rigged the leaders' debates in their favor. And now they have suspended Parliament. Instead of this neutered committee that meets for only a few days with a few members, will the government commit to the full reopening of this House with all its powers, with social distancing, on Monday, September the 21st?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, l'objectif.
Chair, the government's goal is always to reopen the Parliament as it was before. But today we have to live with this pandemic. We're going to do everything to ensure we can go as quickly as possible to ensure a return to normal. But, Chair, the opposition was asking for more time for questions, which what they had. They wanted more and they got it. So what I want to tell my colleague is that when we sent suggestions about how the Parliament would work, they didn't answer our call.
Sorry, Mr. Chong.
Mr. Chair, full Parliament, with its full power, sat through 2 world wars, previous pandemics, and the October crisis in 1970. The government of those days did not seek the suspension of this House. The government is not only failing to defend democracy here, but also abroad. It can't utter the word Taiwan. It is failing to be strong and clear on Hong Kong. And while the situation today is not of that of decades past, it is clear that Canada in the past has stood for the rights of people in Hong Kong. Canada needs to take much stronger diplomatic action on Hong Kong. There are some 300,000 Canadians living there, and they are looking for the government's support. So when will this government act? When will it threaten economic sanctions like the U.S. administration has? When will it provide asylum and a clear path to citizenship like the U.K. government has? When will it speak up against the Communist Party of China's United Front workers operating here in this country? When will it do like Australia did in calling for an international investigation of COVID-19 and organize an international coalition of like-minded democracies to defend Hong Kongers and the violation of the Sino-British Treaty?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for this very important question. Mr. Speaker, I'll remind the member to look at our statement of the 28th of May. It's already done, Mr. Speaker. Canada has spoken to the world, has spoken up, Mr. Speaker. We've made a first declaration with our colleague in Australia and the UK to speak and to say that we have deep concern. We all know, Mr. Speaker, that the one country, two system, the high degree of liberty and freedom enjoyed by the people in Hong Kong have made Hong Kong what it is today, a beacon when it comes to trade and financing. And we know and we have expressed deep concern again on the 28th of May with the United States, with the United Kingdom, with Australia. Canada was front and center with these countries. We say we have deep concern that imposition of a national security law by Beijing would undermine the very foundation, the very principle that have made Hong Kong so successful, Mr. Speaker. And we have said at that time that we, with our international partners, will look at the implication and the ramifications that this may have on our arrangements. And Mr. Speaker, I've called on a meeting of our Five Eyes tonight. I will be chairing a meeting of our Five Eyes with the Foreign Minister. We will be discussing, we'll continue to raise our voice, stand up for the people of Hong Kong, and we will do it with our allies, Mr. Speaker.
We'll now go to Mr. Maguire. Mr. Maguire. Mr. Maguire, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah. No, just...
How's that?
Perfect.
Mr. Chair, farmers have contacted my office about the massive delays with processing the advance payment program loans. Some put their applications in almost 2 months ago and not a dollar has flowed. So what's the point of having an advance payment program if there's no payment? Can the Minister of Agriculture tell us when these delays will end?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to reassure you that we're cooperating with many operators who are independent. This is not administrated by us, but by our partners. And in these circumstances, we...
Mr. Maguire.
Yeah, farmers understand that some of the delays were caused by staff having to work remotely. However, did the minister approve a policy change on April 1st that made the eligibility for these loans more difficult during the middle of a pandemic? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to reassure you that there were a certain number of changes and improvements that were made to the program. And to facilitate this for our administrators, we delayed some of the terms that could have been problematic.
Yes, some of the changes made it more problematic for the producers. The minister must take responsibility for these delays, and farmers deserve an answer as to why she changed the middle of the program. Who advised her that it'd be a good idea to make it more difficult for the farmers to access the advance payment program in the middle of a pandemic? Or did she just go ahead and do this on her own?
The Honourable Minister. Chair, we are working in cooperation continually with the administrators of this program, and we're happy to answer their requests and to ensure that this early payment program can serve them as best possible.
Livestock producers are telling me the premiums for the Western Livestock Insurance Program are too high. That's what I told the Minister of Agriculture over 2 weeks ago, that this was the problem. Yet she went out and said farmers need to make better use of existing support. When will the Minister of Agriculture listen to what the farmers are saying so that they can actually use the existing programs?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to remind everyone that we established certain measures to make access to agri-stability easier. And we also significantly enhanced agri-restart, and we've added $100 million for pork and beef producers and additional funds for food processors as well.
Livestock producers in my riding and several across Canada are still waiting on the Minister of Agriculture's promise for an agri-recovery program. So when will the Minister of Agriculture stop rubbing salt in the farmers' wounds and provide the rest of the story she's been saying is on its way for over a month now in her agri-recovery promise?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. We have committed to paying $50 million through the agri-recovery program for beef producers and additional funds for pork producers as well. The federal government will contribute 70% of this funding, and the provinces will also add funding in their respective areas.
So the Minister of Agriculture's funding that she announced for the livestock industry was insufficient, and what was promised has not been delivered. This has caused hogs to be euthanized and over 100,000 feeder cattle to become overweight, and the industry is in a crisis. How many livestock producers need to go bankrupt before they'll get the help they deserve?
The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Chair. Once again, we significantly increased the funding available through agri-recovery, $50 million for pork producers, for example. This program is administered by the provinces, and we also contributed funding for food processors. We are now going to Ms. Chabot. Chair, we know that the economic recovery won't be the same for everyone. In some sectors, such as tourism, restaurants, hotel, fishing, we don't know if there'll be a slow recovery, and we don't know when there'll be a recovery. Some workers don't know what will happen tomorrow. They're afraid, and they don't know how much they'll be able to earn this summer because we don't know when these businesses will reopen. So the 16-week CERB is running out, and people are afraid of finding themselves with nothing. Will the Minister of Finance announce right now that he will extend the CERB? The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we moved very quickly in the early onset of the COVID-19 pandemic to support workers who have lost their jobs, who have been laid off, or whose jobs simply disappeared through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. It has provided immense support to over 8 million Canadian workers who have applied to the CERB. We will continue to support those workers throughout the COVID-19 pandemic period.
Madame Chabot.
Ms. Chabot. Chair, my question was clear. We know why the CERB was created. We don't need any explanations about that. Workers will see their benefits run out, and there won't be an economic recovery for them in some sectors. For example, in gyms, actors, theaters. My question is, are you ready to extend the CERB right now? The Honourable Minister.
Those are the workers that the honourable member has identified, including those who are not eligible for the EI, were also covered by the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. We moved quickly. We recognized the urgency of the situation. That is why we've taken action to support workers and their families through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. We've processed over 8 million applications through that benefit. We will continue to support Canadian workers at this very difficult time.
Madame Chabot.
Ms. Chabot. If you continue to help these workers, well, it's a simple answer. Some people don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. They don't know if they're going to have any money to pay their bills and to support their families. So CERB will come and this is the end for them. So can you take action? Can you tell the House today that all these people will have an extended CERB? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président.
Chair, I'd like to thank the member for her question. Clearly, we are going to continue our approach. We are going to consider how we can improve and change our programs, such as the wage subsidy. And of course, we are looking at how we can gradually reopen our economy with an approach that will continue to help people to be in a good position. Ms. Chabot. Chair, we're moving forward in terms of the wage subsidy. They decided to extend it. So I think it's a given that the CERB, which will end, could also be extended. There's another commitment that's important. That's the incentive, job incentive. I don't know about you, but in our ridings, we see this. There are people who are afraid because there is an economic recovery in some sectors, and they're afraid to go back to work. There are people who are afraid to go back to their full-time job because they're afraid to lose their full CERB benefit. Are you ready to take action about this and respect your commitment of adding employment incentives? The Honourable Minister. Chair, we know that with the reopening of the economy in a responsible way, we have to consider our programs to ensure that we do keep and protect people. So this continues to be our approach. We are going to consider changes and improvements, and this way we will pursue the reopening of the economy in a responsible way. We are going to take a short break now to allow our employees to change shifts. I'd like to also remind members, while we have a few seconds, the members should put their questions through the chair and not to the minister directly. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and we'll now carry on. We're going to where are we going to? Mr. Easter in Malpeque. Mr. Easter, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be splitting my time with the member from Brampton North. Today, June 1st, under the auspices of the Food and Agriculture Organization, we celebrate World Milk Day. World Milk Day allows us to emphasize the importance of milk as a global food, its benefits for our health as well as our nutrition, and to celebrate the dairy sector from primary producers to the processors who ensure that our many high-quality dairy products get to the marketplace. Canadians are fortunate to have a thriving dairy sector that, under supply management, provides high-quality products at reasonable prices to consumers. But even under supply management, though dairy farmers have found themselves, they've faced difficult challenges as a result of recent trade agreements, and sudden market shocks as a result of the pandemic. So, Mr. Chair, to acknowledge World Milk Day, I'd love to be able to raise a glass of wholesome white or chocolate milk, but we can't do that. But on the other hand, I must ask the Minister of Agriculture, what is the government doing to support the dairy sector in these times so that we can celebrate World Milk Day next year with more vim and vigor?
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, and I would like to thank Mr. Easter from his great writing of Malbec and Prince Edward Island. Today is a day particularly important to thank families working on our 11,000 dairy farms across the country, caring for 1.4 million cows to produce each year more than 9.3 billion liters of milk of the highest quality. The dairy sector in Canada, it is more than 220,000 Canadians and foreign workers who dedicate their lives to feed us. While our society lives unprecedented changes, the dairy sector demonstrates its resiliency and proves more than ever the value of the supply management system. That is why we increased by $200 million the borrowing capacity of the Canadian Dairy Commission to improve its butter and cheese storage programs, giving the flexibility to manage the surplus of milk and support its mandate. Over the past few years, we have invested on dairy farms and have given direct compensations to dairy farmers for trade agreement with Europe and Asia, and we will do the same for the new NAFTA. Raise a glass for World Milk Day.
We'll now go to Ms. Sahota in Brampton North. Ms. Sahota, go ahead.
She's muted.
Oh, I think, Ms. Sahota, you'll just have to unmute your audio there. Give that another try.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Mr. Speaker, last week, a horrific video surfaced showing the killing of an unarmed Black man at the hands of Minneapolis police. George Floyd's death was the latest in a series of unwarranted deaths of Black men and women at the hands of police. Since his death, solidarity protests have erupted across cities in the United States and all over the world, asking for justice and a stop to systemic dehumanization of Black people. I wish I could say we are, but sadly we're not immune to the reality of what is happening south of the border. The same protests that are taking place in New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Berlin, Paris, and London are also taking place in our own backyard. In cities like Montreal and Toronto, thousands of people have already taken to the streets to not only decry anti-Black racism, but to also ask for tangible solutions to effectively combat anti-Black racism. We don't have to wait for pain and suffering and outrage to boil to the surface to act. There's nothing we know today that we didn't already know. As Canadians are demonstrating and calling on their society and their governments to do better, can the Minister of Diversity and Inclusion and Youth tell us what this government is doing to address anti-Black racism in Canada and to ensure that we are evening the playing field for Black Canadians?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Chair, the MP for Brampton North is correct. Anti-Black racism, and discrimination are present in Canada. With COVID-19, we have even seen a rise in anti-Asian racism. Mr. Chair, we all must speak out against racism and discrimination. Keeping silent is to condone these horrific acts. These acts don't have to be violent or result in the loss of life to be wrong. In fact, the actions of Amy Cooper shone a light on the stealth racism that exists. We must acknowledge inequities in our institutions and in people's lived experiences. If we as Canadians truly desire an inclusive Canada, every single one of us must step up, be allies, and do what we can to make workplaces, communities, and public spaces safer. Our government has started this work. The open, transparent, merit-based appointment process is resulting in decision-making tables better reflecting Canadians. We recognize the UN International Decade for People of African Descent. The applications for capacity building in Black Canadian communities are being assessed. The Anti-Racism Secretariat is set up for Canadians, but also for government departments to improve their systems, including advancement opportunities. opportunities. The recently announced Immunity Task Force will provide disaggregated data to decision makers because decisions need to be based on science and evidence. Yet this work is by no means finished. Although our government is moving in the right direction, there is clearly a lot more work to do, and we are committed to doing that work with communities as allies, as partners. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To Hamilton Mountain and Mr. Duval.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I will be splitting my time with the member of Elmwood Transcona. Mr. Speaker, workers, unions, business leaders, and analysts across the country are raising a huge alarm over potential bankruptcies due to COVID-19. Thousands of Canadian workers are exposed and vulnerable. For years, this government has promised to change the laws to protect the workers from corporate bankruptcy, but have failed to deliver. Will this government fix the law before more Canadian workers lose their hard-earned pensions?
Sir.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member from Hamilton Mountain for that question and for his advocacy on this file. I remind the member, since 2015, one of our first initiatives was the repealing of Bills 525 and 377, which were anti-union legislation. Since then, we've implemented a number of measures to protect workers. We've increased the Wage Earner Protection Program by extending it from 4 weeks to 7 weeks. And the member is well aware that in 2019...
We'll now go back to Mr. Duval. Mr. Duval, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, the changes the government made last year to bankruptcy and solvency laws were largely cosmetic. It won't protect the workers' and pensioners' livelihood once the bankruptcy hits. The government can protect severance, termination pay, pensions, and benefits from corporate theft. But will they do it? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made a number of significant changes in Budget 2019, including that the process for CCAA be more open and transparent. We mandated that those that are coming to the process have to be honest and truthful. And one thing we heard in the consultations was the ability for courts to set aside executive bonuses. And we implemented all those changes because we want to continue to protect pensioners.
Time for a short question, Mr. Duval.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Speaker. And the minister isn't answering the question. Canadian workers are worried. This is about their livelihood. Will the government fix the laws, yes or no, to protect the workers' and pensioners' rights?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have made amendments and we are going to continue to make amendments. We want to absolutely ensure that pensions are protected. I look forward to working collaboratively with the member.
We'll now go to Mr. Blakey, Elmwood Transcona. Mr. Blakey, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Twice following negotiations with the NDP, the government is committed to provide direct financial assistance to people living with disabilities. I'm wondering when those people can expect the government to announce the details of that assistance.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to advancing on the issues that have been identified by Canadians with disabilities. We are continuing that engagement, and we will have more to say on that very soon.
Back to Mr. Blakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that answer is entirely inadequate, and I have a lot of sympathy for people living with disabilities across the country who are getting impatient with the fact that, you know, alongside the initial commitment to seniors, for instance, the government made a commitment to helping people living with disabilities with the same kind of direct financial assistance. It hasn't come. Why has it taken so long for the government to get around to helping people who are in a crisis right now? I want to know the reason why this hasn't been announced yet.
Well,
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have established the COVID-19 Disability Advisory Group comprised of experts in disability inclusion. We're moving forward with the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, which will provide $2,000 per month for eligible students with permanent disabilities. We're doubling the Canada Student Grants for students with disabilities in the coming academic year. We have done a lot, but we will continue to do more, and we will have more to share on our continuing efforts to support persons with disabilities.
Go ahead, Mr. Blakey. Time for one short question.
Their commitment was not around an advisory commitment. Their commitment was for direct financial assistance to people living with disabilities who are facing additional costs because of the pandemic. They've committed twice and they've done nothing. So when are they going to get around to it? And why should people living with disabilities have to wait any longer than they already have?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, that is precisely why we are listening closely to the Disability Advisory Group to get expert evidence and advice. We will have more to share, and there is more work to come, and there will be results to be announced very soon.
We'll now go to Mr. McLean, Calgary Centre. Mr. McLean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. According to La Presse, Federal Cabinet Ministers Stephen Guilbeault, Catherine McKenna, and Jonathan Wilkinson have been handed responsibility for crafting an economic recovery plan that aims to accelerate the green shift. True to form, this cabal around the Prime Minister has declared, let's not let a good crisis go to waste. Can the Prime Minister confirm that his ministers have been working with environmental lobby groups for further financial support to engineer Canada's economy post-COVID?
The Honourable Minister for Middle Class Prosperity.
Mr. Speaker, our most urgent priority is COVID-19 and the health and safety of Canadians. As we support Canadians through this time, we will also ensure our long economic, environmental and physical well-being. Our government remains committed to building a stronger and more resilient economy to ensure a sustainable, prosperous future for our kids and grandkids. Just like science is guiding us in our response to COVID-19, science will continue to guide us to reduce pollution and fight.
And back to Mr. McLean.
The Task Force for a Resilient Recovery was quoted last week that they would have recommendations for government action available within 8 weeks, notably 8 weeks when Parliament is, by this government's design, absent. Can the Prime Minister disclose to this committee how many meetings his 61 environmental activist advisors have had with the task force or its members?
The Honourable Minister.
Chair, our most urgent priority is the health and safety of Canadians with COVID-19, and we'd like to also reassure our economic well-being and long-term physical well-being as well. Our government remains determined to create a more resilient and stronger economy so that we'll be there for our children and grandchildren.
The task force is a who's who of academics and bureaucrats. Surprisingly, no one from the productive part of the Canadian economy. So much for pan-Canadian input. The task force is reviewing work produced by Smart Prosperity, a government-funded institute whose membership overlaps with both the task force and the government's own Canadian Institute for Climate Choice. This is a bureaucratic environmental Ponzi scheme with overlapping personnel and overlapping mandates. The only thing not overlapping is their funding. How many organizations does this government need to fund to recycle work produced by other redundant government-funded entities?
Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président. Chair, right now our focus and our priority is on Canadians, their health and their well-being, namely. Just as science guides us in our response to COVID-19, is going to continue to guide us in the fight against climate change. Our priority is to support Canadians throughout this period, and we're also going to ensure our economic and environmental well-being in the long term.
A notable member of the task force in question is one Gerald Butts. Perhaps just a coincidence, but can the Prime Minister confirm that this is the same Gerald Butts who was forced to resign as his principal secretary for his role in attempting to coerce Canada's then Justice Minister into breaking the law?
The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, depuis le début. Mr. Chair, since the beginning of this crisis, our priority has been to support Canadians, their health and safety. We will continue to support Canadians because we need to get through this crisis by supporting Canadians.
I ask, is this the same Gerald Butts who was paid US $360,000 from an American-funded organization after he started working with this Prime Minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Encore une fois, Monsieur le Président, c'est important de parler aux Canadiens. Once again, Mr. Chair, it's important to communicate with Canadians and ensure that they know that we're prioritizing their health and safety. We will continue to do so. This is a crisis, and we will support Canadians.
I may ask, whose role as the Principal Secretary in the Office of the Ontario's then Premier, advanced policies and now saddle Ontarians with the highest energy costs in North America? Is this the same Gerald Butch who weighed down Ontario with the world's highest subnational debt burden? All for the benefit of new green jobs that notably have never arrived.
That's the one. Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président, vous savez, depuis 2 mois et demi, nous soutenons.
Mr. Speaker, for the last 2.5 months, we've been supporting Canadians. We have created an economic program to help workers, businesses, and Canadians throughout the country. We will continue to prioritize Canadians' health and safety.
And the MP for West Nova, Mr. D'Entremont.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, the Minister of Tourism and ACOA and les langues officielles was happy to close our National Tourism Week with announcing investments of $70 million to offset financial losses in the tourism industry across Canada. Where's the big clap? Okay, there you go. There you go. Give him a clap spot. More than $70 million will be invested to support the sector and promote Canadian destination. Southern Ontario received $30 million. Northern Ontario, $7 million. Western Canada, $3.5 million. Nothing for Atlantic Canada. Nothing for Atlantic Canada yet. So I'm hoping that knowing that we just had an announcement from the Minister of Transport that there will be no cruise ships in Atlantic Canada or anywhere in Canada this year. It's hundreds of millions of dollars of losses. Where's the program for Atlantic Canada?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I commend my colleague for his important question, and I know he's a very strong advocate for the tourism sector in Atlantic Canada. So I wanted to reassure him, because obviously we want to support the tourism sector in Atlantic Canada. ACOA has a clear direction to do just that, and if he has any good ideas, please come forward and let's have a conversation. Meanwhile, Atlantic Canada will also be supported through Destination Canada, because rather than really doing marketing internationally, we will be supporting destination marketing organizations across the country, including in Atlantic Canada, to make sure that we launch this new movement of visiting and visit local. Thank you.
Monsieur D'Entremont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And that would be all great if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic where you can't even cross the Nova Scotia-New Brunswick border without having to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So it's going to make traveling through the Maritimes at least very difficult. You know, in St. John, New Brunswick, 79 cruise ships and more than 270,000 passengers will not be giving back to that local community. At home in Nova Scotia, about 118 or 130 vessels, a minimum financial loss of $165 million not be generated, job losses, and permanent closures of restaurants and boardwalk shops. And for Prince Edward Island, which is expected to set a record attendance year, will lose visits of 97 ships, 154 passengers, and $60 million lost to the province's economy. So, Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister is who is ACOA going to be working with, and what kind of programs are going to be available to them to help them through this very difficult year?
La Ministre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I agree with my colleague. The sector is really impacted by the pandemic and the economic crisis. It was a bit like the canary in the coal mine. The first impacted, and definitely it is still impacted. And that's why we are in close contact with tourism leaders and operators across the country. Again, recently I had good conversations with the Chambers of Commerce all across Atlantic Canada, including hospitality in Newfoundland as well for the tourism sector. So there's money for the tourism sector and tourism operators. They can have access to wage subsidy, and because they wanted to have access to it until later in the summer, well, has been extended until the end of August. They have access to the rent relief program, the CEBA account, and also through the COA funding. And as mentioned many times in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, if my colleague has clear examples to provide me, let's work together. Let's make sure that the money flows to these people because they need it. Thank you.
We have about a minute left, Mr. D'Entremont.
La semaine dernière, j'ai comme vous.
Last week, Simon-Pierre Poulin communicated with me about the Save Saint-Jean movement. And he asked why we couldn't continue working on the official languages file and modernizing the Act. I had to explain to him that Parliament isn't sitting normally. In fact, it's a false Parliament with all these restrictions. Mr. Chair, the pandemic is now threatening protecting French and minority communities. The government had committed to modernizing the Act in the first 6 months of its mandate. How will you do that? The Honourable Minister. Indeed, both our official languages are important, and we always need to be careful to protect both official languages. With regard to the Saint-Jean campus, I'm fully up to date on the issue, and I spoke to my counterparts in Alberta on Friday afternoon in order to share our concerns and the importance of protecting the institution. I would also like to answer regarding the modernization of the Official Languages Act. Like my colleague, I am concerned, and we should continue dialogues and keep the issue open because we need to be there to protect language rights. Again, if he has good ideas, come see me, we'll chat.
Maintenant, Monsieur Martel, Chicoutimi-Lefior. Monsieur Martel, allez-y.
Mr. Martel, Chicoutimi-Lefior. Mr. Speaker, some Canadians must now use up their normal EI benefits before they can access the CERB. What I would like to say today, well, I would like to ask whether they will be able to use up the CERB eligibility after the 3rd of October.
Mr. Speaker, we ensured that those who switched over to the Canada Emergency Response Benefit would be covered by it, whether they were EI eligible or not. We're committed to supporting all the workers who have been impacted by COVID-19 pandemic.
Mr. Martel.
Mr. Martel. Mr. Chair, the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region is one of the regions that is most affected by the effects of COVID-19, according to a poll carried out by the Trois-Rivières University. Now, our tourism industry has led to more than $300 million, including $50 million in the cruise industry. The money announced yesterday is a very modest beginning. What is the government going to do to help regions?
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Il va de soi que
The Honourable Minister. Yes, the tourism industry is very affected. We need to help regions. That is why we have extended the wage subsidy until the end of August. And we have also put forward initiatives for commercial rent and 40,000 business loans, as well as $70 million to support tourism. I've had good conversations with various stakeholders in Quebec, such as Martin Soucy from the Tourism Alliance. We will do our part to support the tourism sector. Mr. Martel, the interpreter would like to mention that Mr. Martel's sound quality is poor and does not permit adequate interpretation. Many businesses are too small to receive the assistance announced by the government. The eligibility criteria are too restrictive and will prevent certain accommodations from hosting Canadians this summer, but they must still spend money. What will the government do to help these regions? I would like to thank my colleague for his question, which is an important one. That is why we are working on a plan to help these small businesses, which are everywhere in the Saguenay region, Quebec, and the entire country. And that is why there is a further $1 billion from the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance in order to help these businesses that may be falling through the cracks. I'll have more to say about that in the days to come. Mr. Martel. Mr. Chair, I was very disappointed to see that we lost asparagus harvest because of the lack of labor, and blueberry producers in my riding are fearing that the same thing will happen to them. Some employers who are eligible for summer jobs can't find anyone to fill these positions. When will there be incentives for those who are working rather than incentives to not work? The Honourable Minister.
The honourable member for the question. We believe that the flexibilities that we've introduced to the Canada Summer Jobs Program will enable more employers to use it, including more businesses, as well as helping young people to acquire the necessary skills and benefit from this really important program.
Mr. Martel,
Mr. Martel, you have about a minute left. Please go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 19th of May, the government said that it was studying various options to help business owners and those who use personal accounts for their business. When will the emergency aid be available to these businesses? The Honourable Minister.
I want to thank my honourable colleague for that very good question. Small businesses are the heart of our communities, all of our communities, and we've been working really hard to help them. Over almost 650,000 small businesses have received the loan, which is really helping with those costs. We have more work to do to make sure that those other businesses also get access to this support. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I will now go to Mr. Epp, Chatham-Kent, Leamington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wish to congratulate my colleague, Cathy McLeod, as on Tuesday, May 26th, she gained a new resident. Brinley Lisette Hooby was born to parents Adam and Karina Hooby. Karina is my daughter, and it makes Brinley my first grandchild, and presently my favorite newest Canadian. All are healthy, and I thank God for Brinley's healthy arrival. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Minister Jordan, the Freshwater Fish Marketing Corporation is allowed access to the Seafood Stabilization Fund, while you deny its competitor, our Ontario Fisheries, that fish on the Great Lakes, the similar right to apply. Minister, why?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for the very good question. The Ontario inland fishers and the people in Ontario are eligible for other programs that are offered through the regional development agencies. We're going to make sure that no industry is left behind when it comes to our fisheries. We're making sure that we're addressing the concerns of inland fisheries as well as coastal fisheries, and those programs will be available to anyone who needs to apply through the RDAs.
Mr. Epp, go ahead.
Minister, will you direct then these regional agencies to provide equitable and equivalent funding as the Seafood Stabilization Fund?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're making sure that they have the same access to programs as the Seafood Stabilization Fund through the regional development agencies. We're making sure that everyone who is in need of support through the programs will be able to access it.
To Mr. Epp.
According to Stats Canada, before my granddaughter turns 1 year old, her share of the federal debt will be over $39,000. What is Minister Morneau's fiscal plan for Canada so that the interest on this debt doesn't cripple Canada with higher taxes?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we realize that it's always important to be responsible from a fiscal standpoint. We believe that the responsible approach today is to make investments to support Canadians, to make investments to support businesses, so that we can have jobs and that we can get through this pandemic, so that we have a strong economy, and in that way are able to continue with our approach to managing our economy in a responsible way.
Back to Mr. Epp.
Minister, when can Parliament, or this semblance of it, see that plan for economic prosperity?
Great question. Just to remind honourable members to direct their questions through the chair. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've been quite clear that we need to be transparent on a daily basis, giving Canadians an understanding of the investments that we're making through this pandemic. And once the situation economically is more stable, we will certainly be coming forward with a broader plan.
Mr. Epp.
The Canadian Chamber of Commerce said 3 months before the pandemic that this current government's level of spending and incurring of debt is untenable, that future generations like my granddaughter will have to pay for. How much more debt is the minister planning to incur? Through you, Mr. Chair.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, coming into this pandemic, strong fiscal position with the lowest amount of debt as a function of our economy among G7 countries. That's afforded us the opportunity to invest on behalf of Canadians. We will continue to take that approach. We believe that's a responsible thing to do through the course of this challenge.
Mr. Epp.
What is the budget for stopping illegal American guns from getting through our borders?
The Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank the member for. I can tell you that we have invested considerable amounts of money and have earmarked ongoing monies to ensure that we address the issue of illegal guns passing across the border. We realize.
And back to Mr. Epp.
Fight government-trained and licensed Canadians in the court challenge that's now been triggered.
The Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister. Is it muted? We're not getting any audio there.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Could I have some more time, please?
Yeah, we're just going to hold time here momentarily, Mr. Epp.
I apologize, Mr. Speaker. Could I ask the question to be repeated, please?
Mr. Epp, your question again?
The budget for fighting the government-trained and licensed people who are now triggering a lawsuit against your order in council.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I don't have the answer to that, but obviously the government will defend its position.
Mr. Epp.
COVID-19 has exacerbated the problem of this government's policy of spending the cupboards bare in good times instead of planning for a rainy day, and folks, we're in a storm. Unlike this government, municipalities cannot by law say, put it on the tab for the next generation. The balanced budget requirements force them to choose between slash services or drastic tax hikes. Federation of Canadian Municipalities says they need $10 billion in targeted emergency operating funding. So, do municipalities slash services? Do they raise taxes? Or will we be there for the municipalities?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Speaker. Our government absolutely understands the crucial role municipalities play as the engine of our economy at all times, and particularly today, as in many parts of the country, we are looking to restart the economy. And that is why the Prime Minister announced just this morning that we will be accelerating payments under the Gas Tax Fund. Municipalities will receive the full amount of their 2020-2021 payment on June 10th. This will help them with some of their near-term liquidity issues.
We're now going to Mr. Manley and Nanaimo Ladysmith. Mr. Manley, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Emergency Commercial Rent Assistance Program is not helping enough small businesses. Many landlords do not want to take part in the program. Small businesses are requesting that they are able to apply without the landlord's participation. Many small businesses do not meet the 70% income loss threshold. Many did their best to keep employees engaged and tried hard to not lose clients, as the government urged them to do. They are, in fact, being penalized for that effort. Thousands of business owners across the country will not be able to pay their rent today and risk closing permanently. Will the government push the provinces to include an eviction moratorium during the pandemic and make this commercial rent assistance program more flexible to ensure small businesses can survive?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for the question, which recognizes the very serious challenge that many small businesses are facing during the course of this pandemic. We know that the programs we put forward, programs like the emergency business account, are supporting businesses, of course, but the emergency rent approach, which we've worked together with the provinces, can also help significantly. We are seeing a significant number of landlords and tenants coming forward with this and taking this up. I would encourage landlords to use this program, which is supporting them. Of course, the suggestion from the member that provinces take action in restricting evictions is one that I've been speaking to ministers of finance from the provinces over the course of the last couple of months. So this is an area of provincial jurisdiction. We are supportive and working hard to make sure this program works.
And back to Mr. Manley. Mr. Manley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks the 31st anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre, and we are currently seeing repression of the democracy movement in Hong Kong. We know that Communist China oppresses minority groups and does not respect human rights. In spite of this knowledge, the Harper Conservative government signed a lopsided and anti-democratic investment treaty with China in 2012, the Canada-China FIPA. This conservative deal gave Chinese state-owned corporations extraordinary powers to challenge our democratic decisions through a secretive private tribunal system. In the years since the FIPA was signed, with no vote in Parliament, Chinese state-owned corporations have been purchasing Canadian assets and resources. These corporations can seek financial compensation from Canadian taxpayers for the loss of potential profit when our laws and policies get in the way of their profit-taking. Can the government tell us whether any of these Chinese corporations have threatened to use the anti-democratic investor-state provisions of the FIPA to seek financial compensation from Canadian taxpayers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for this very important question. As I'm sure the member will know, Canada is standing up with its allies around the world to protect the freedom and democracy that have been enjoyed by the people in Hong Kong. As he knows, we have issued a declaration with a number of allies. We have called upon making sure that measures remain in place to protect the freedom and the liberty of people of Hong Kong. We know that the one country, two system has provided the framework under which the people of Hong Kong have been able to create an economy which is resilient, have made of Hong Kong a place where people want to do business, commerce, and trade. And Mr. Speaker, we have expressed our deep concern, and I would refer the member to the joint statement we have issued with the United States, Australia, the United Kingdom. We have spoken with one voice, and we have said we have deep concern that the action by Beijing would undermine, if they were to proceed with this national security law unilaterally, that would undermine the bedrock of what has made Hong Kong, and that we will review the impact that this law could have.
Mr. Manley, you've got about 45 seconds left. Go ahead. Time for a short question. Go ahead.
Okay, well, that was a trick question because this anti-democratic agreement states that a Chinese corporation wouldn't be able to have permission to disclose that information if there was, in fact, an investor-state dispute. Unlike NAFTA, which had a 6-month period for renegotiation, the Harper Conservatives have locked us into a 15-year agreement with the FIPA. And is this anti-democratic agreement? Will the government re-engage the Special Committee on Canada-China Relations so we can do a thorough investigation of this conservative sellout to Canadian democracy?
We are out of time there, Mr. Manley. We'll go to the Minister for response. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for that very good question. Canada will pursue trade, of course, always in the interest of Canadians, and we are in the process of reviewing our FIPA agreements so that those agreements can indeed provide the right framework for us to do trade, Canadians to do trade, with the interests of Canadians always top of mind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So we're now going to Ms. Ashton in Churchill, Kiwatanuk-Aski. Ms. Ashton, go ahead, your question.
Mr. Speaker, I'll be splitting my time with a member for Victoria. My question is to the Minister of Fisheries. This pandemic has hit Canadians hard. Import markets for our fish have dried up. This is devastating for our inland fishery. The season opened last week and fishers are desperate for support. For Indigenous fishers, fishing sustains their communities. It is their way of life. So will the government work with the Freshwater Fish Marketing Corporation and inland fishers to develop and facilitate the delivery of an emergency package that works for them and find ways to redirect product to domestic markets, including communities facing food insecurity now?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank my colleague for the question as well as for her advocacy. Mr. Speaker, we've recognized how difficult the pandemic has hit our fishers and our fishing sector. We've made available a number of different measures. One of the things that we're doing primarily is the harvester's benefit, which allows all harvesters to take advantage of a benefit as well as a grant contribution to help them get through. We're also changing the EI so that they can now qualify for their EI benefits based on previous seasons, not this one, recognizing that they're going to face challenges this year. With regards to the Freshwater Fish Marketing Board, this is a Crown corporation. We know that it's been a very difficult time for them. We are continuing to look at ways we can address the challenges within the industry, and we'll continue to work with her to make sure that we address those needs.
Ms. Ashton, we've got about 1 minute left. Time for a short question. Go ahead.
My question to the Minister of Transport. Canadians are being ripped off by airlines that are refusing to give passengers their money back. Airlines are profiting off of Canadians during a very desperate time. This government has sat by while the Canadian Transportation Agency issued a statement to back up the airlines' appalling actions. So what is this government doing to fix this? Why aren't they ensuring that public funds involve reimbursing passengers and an equity stake for Canadians?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I certainly recognize the very difficult situation and the frustration of Canadians who would have preferred a refund. At the same time, at this point in time, if airlines were required to immediately reimburse all of the canceled tickets, it would have a devastating effect on the airlines. That is why the Canadian Transportation Agency, which is an independent body, recommended that vouchers be issued and that they have a reasonable time to be used, 2 years. And it is also very important to bear in mind that as we begin to exit this pandemic, that we will still have an airline industry in this country. That is important.
Now going to the Honourable Member for Victoria, Ms. Collins. Ms. Collins, go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, in Victoria, housing and homelessness were at a crisis point long before the pandemic hit. But now people are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19. And if you don't have a place to live, you don't have the luxury of following public health advice and staying home. As part of the recovery, will this government be increasing funding to build or buy the housing needed to address homelessness?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. Very early in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, our government provided $157.5 million directly to 51 community entities to respond directly to the needs of homeless Canadians, as well as providing $50 million in additional money to women's shelters. We are continuing with the National Housing Strategy. We are providing supports to communities, NGOs, as well as municipalities who are moving projects forward.
And back to you, Ms. Collins. Go ahead.
The federal government allocated just $1.3 million in Reaching Home funds to my region. Well, the province has stepped up. It cost them $18.5 million to purchase just one hotel in Victoria. The federal funding is clearly inadequate. Is the government going to show some leadership and at least match the provincial funds?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question again. We moved very quickly. The $157.5 million, I must note, was additional money on top of the base funding that we provide every single year to address the needs of Canada's most vulnerable. In addition to that, our projects under the National Housing Strategy are continuing. We are providing leadership. We are trusting the community entities to make the decisions on where the funding goes and to respond in a way that meets
Ms. Collins, you've got about 40 seconds left. The time for a short question. Go ahead.
The minister mentioned the National Housing Strategy, and this government's National Housing Strategy actually reduces the level of targeted funding for lower income households, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer. My question is simple. Coming out of the pandemic in the coming months, is the government going to increase housing funding to address the immediate need, yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I disagree with the honourable member. Our money is targeted to communities. They have community advisory boards that decide how to spend the money. If the NDP does not trust local communities to make decisions, they should say so.
And now I would ask the honourable member for Joliette, Mr. Sainte-Marie, to take the floor. Go ahead. Thank you, Chair. COVID or not, based on what I've heard, we're still in a democracy and the government must continue to be accountable. The government must give us a clear portrait of our economy, including all of its emergency measures and whether it intends to extend benefits or not over the summer. The government also present its scenarios for the economic recovery. The government must be transparent. When will the government present its economic update? The Honourable Minister. Chair, I'd like to thank the member for his question. I agree, it's very important to be transparent and to have the necessary information go out to Canadians. Every day, we are announcing measures and also the cost of measures, the cost of investments. This is very important. And the challenge right now is that the economic situation is very fluid. When the situation will be more stable, we'll be able to provide an economic update at that time. Mr. Sainte-Marie, Chair, when this situation will be stable, it'll be too late to have an economic update. The PBO even is pressing the government to quickly table an economic update. There are 3 weeks left before the summer break in the House, so time's running out. The Quebec City did an update this month, is promising one rather. Will this government do the same? Thank you, Chair. I would like to assure you that we are continuing to be transparent with our investment. That's very important. And of course, every day we work to ensure that we fully understand the economic situation. As I said, when the situation is a bit more stable, we'll be able to provide an economic update at that time. Mr. Sainte-Marie, thank you, Chair. Once again, I repeat, when the situation will be more stable, it'll be too late to have an economic update. Then we'll need a budget. In terms of the recovery, the PBO is surprised that the government is calling on the private sector for ideas for the recovery plan. There are thousands of public servants with great ideas, and the government could also ask opposition parties for their views. This would be a wonderful idea. Why is this government outsourcing the creation of its recovery plan to the private sector? The Honourable Minister. Chair, I'd like to tell the member that it's really important to listen. What we're trying to do is to listen to the ideas and the opinions of people in the Parliament and also from the society in general. We're focusing on our approach of listening to people, and of course, with this approach, we will have one to restart our economy to ensure we'll be able to maintain our strong position. Mr. Sainte-Marie, thank you, Chair. We're surprised still that the government did outsource its recovery plan, but the earlier the government presents its recovery plan, the better. This will allow companies and individuals to regain confidence in the economy and thus loosen the purse strings and reassure people that, yes, there'll be economic life after the pandemic. This is what the PBO is saying. Can the government give us the date it will present its recovery plan? Thank you. The Honourable Minister. Chair, we think that it's very important to consider what we need to do. For every portion of this crisis right now, we have to consider our health situation and the gradual reopening of our economy. And that is why we're considering an approach such as safe restart. And when we have more information for phase 3, we'll be providing more information about the approach for the recovery. You have roughly 30 seconds, Mr. Sainte-Marie. Thank you. I understand that the exact date of the recovery is hard to give right now, but can the minister tell us whether, for the time being, he plans to present a recovery plan in the coming month or after, in a month that ends with the name Burr? Thank you, Chair. We continue to work with the provinces on an approach for the timing of the recovery. And of course, we're listening to our colleagues at the Parliament.
To the honourable member for Abbotsford, Mr. Fast. Mr. Fast, go ahead, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Prime Minister continues to pander to the communist regime in China. We were shocked to hear that his own Minister of Digital Government used WeChat, a Chinese social media site, to raise funds to sue a global news reporter for what? For daring to expose China's attempts to hoard PPEs during the COVID crisis. My question is this. Is it the practice of this government to support lawsuits against Canadian reporters who challenge the hostile actions of the regime in China? And will the Prime Minister now condemn the actions of the Digital Government Minister?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We value the important work of media across the country and across the world. Attacking the integrity of hardworking journalists is not acceptable. Like many members on all sides of this House, WeChat is a social media platform used to engage and share information with the Chinese-Canadian community. Participation in this group, much like Facebook group, is guided by posted guidelines and a disclaimer. In this case, the individual who violated the guidelines of the group is no longer part of this group. Thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Fast. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Canadians have no reason to trust the Prime Minister on anything to do with China, especially when it comes to trade policy. 2.5 years ago, the Prime Minister traveled to China to commence free trade negotiations, and the talks ended up in complete failure and embarrassment. Still, the Prime Minister continues to cozy up to the Chinese regime, refusing to ban Huawei from our 5G network or to speak out convincingly against China's oppression in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, the two Michaels are continuing to languish in Chinese jails. This is the kind of partner that the Prime Minister wants to negotiate a trade agreement with. So can the Minister tell us whether at any time during the last 6 months, the Prime Minister or anyone else in his government have had discussions with China about a free trade agreement, and a simple yes or no will do?
Well, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague for that question. As you know, Canada has a complex and multi-dimensional relationship with China. Canada will continue to engage with China with eyes wide open, and any work that we do on trade and on all matters will always be in the interest of Canadians first. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Back to you, Mr. Fast.
Well, I think Canadians will see that the Minister didn't even answer a simple yes or no question. So I'll ask the Minister a simpler yes or no question. Is she or anyone else in her government presently discussing or negotiating a free trade agreement with China? Yes or no?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we will always do our work, including any discussions on trade, and indeed all our work with the interests of Canadians and Canadian businesses at the absolute top of our priority. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You, Mr. Fast, go ahead.
Again, no answer, so I'll try again. Will the Minister now assure Canadians that she and the Prime Minister's government will not negotiate a free trade agreement with China? Yes or no?
Honourable Minister.
Any work that we do will always be guided in the best interests of Canadians and Canadian businesses. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And back to Mr. Fast.
Mr. Speaker, I am just flabbergasted. This minister has been asked 3 times, is the government negotiating a trade agreement? She refuses to answer. So I'll try again. Will the minister tell us why she thinks negotiating a trade agreement with a hostile country like China is in Canada's best interest?
Well, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thank the honourable member for the question. The answer is no.
Back to you, Mr. Fast. Mr. Fast, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure. Free trade is a good thing when it takes place between like-minded countries that embrace free market principles and apply the rule of law. China is not such a country. In fact, China repeatedly flouts international trade rules, illegally dumps underpriced goods into Canada, and prevents Canadian canola, beef, and pork from entering China. It has also jailed Canadians without due process. So will the minister now assure us that her government will not negotiate any free trade agreement with China? Yes or no?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the honourable member for that question. We are not in discussions with China on a free trade agreement. And as my colleagues, including the Prime Minister, my colleague, the Foreign Minister, have said many times in this House and outside of this House, our priority continues to be the immediate release of Canadians detained in China. We will always work in the interest of Canadians, Canadian businesses. That is what we will always do. Good job.
This will conclude today's sitting of the Special Committee on the COVID-19 pandemic. Thereby, this committee stands adjourned until tomorrow at noon.